everybody welcomes the diplomatic efforts made by President Trump. It's just the problem is that Putin is mocking those attempts. Of course, Europeans want this war to stop as well, but what we want is that this is stopped for good, not that there's a pause so that Russia can gather itself and then move on a larger scale. And by the way, in these negotiations, they are also demanding territories that they haven't even conquered militarily.
At the Bled Strategic Forum 2025, EU High Representative urged Europe to remain steadfast in its support for Ukraine, cautioning against war fatigue even as public opinion shows growing exhaustion. Kallas admitted signs of fatigue, but insisted,
"Of course I see signs of war fatigue amongst our public, and this is very, very understandable. At the same time, we don't have wars, so why are we tired of the war as we are not fighting the bombs every day? But I see absolute resolve amongst the European countries still. Also European leaders being together with President Zelensky in the White House and really delivering the messages, reading Putin and his actions the way they're presented. So even if we are over 3 years into this war, then our unity still stands."
Responding to a recent Gallup poll showing most Ukrainians favor negotiated peace, she warned against pushing Kyiv to cede territory, labeling calls for land concessions a trap from Moscow.
This is the classical Russian negotiation tactic. So like pushing this, presenting demands, threats, using force for something that has never been yours. And by the way, in these negotiations, they are also demanding territories that they haven't even conquered militarily. So like we are making a compromise as we are settling for those territories that we have militarily conquered. So why is it a trap? It is because everybody's starting to talk about what Ukraine should give up. And saying, of course, it's up to Zelensky to decide what territories they are willing to give up. But then, it really misses the point that Russia hasn't made any concessions, and they are the aggressor here. So they haven't made any concessions while everybody's talking about what Ukraine should give away, and that's a trap.
Kallas welcomed U.S. diplomatic efforts, but called for tougher moves from all allies, saying, "If we would all be tougher on Putin, this war would be over." She rejected the notion that Europe plays a secondary role, stressing any deal must be agreed by both Ukraine and its European partners, because it must be implemented here. Addressing division within the EU on aid and sanctions, Kallas was clear.
How are you going to break the Hungarian blockade here?
Well, first, we have 18 packages of sanctions where Hungarians are also on board, so we should not forget that. Of course, every time is hard. It's very hard discussions. It's getting harder all the time. I don't deny that. But they're still on board. When it comes to the frozen assets, then we had a very frank and open discussion with the ministers. And there are legal issues. There are worries for those countries who have a large share of those issues. So I think what is important right now is to really think about the exit strategy. Because again, if there is any kind of peace agreement in place, then we can't possibly imagine, and we have a European Council decision saying that those assets cannot be returned unless Russia pays compensation for the damages. So we need to work on the day after and the exit strategy, because we can't possibly imagine that all these damages that Russia is causing by bombing Ukraine will be paid by our taxpayers. It should be Russia who pays.
On security guarantees, she highlighted the EU's contribution through military and civilian missions, defense industry support, and readiness to train Ukrainian forces. Turning to the Middle East and global challenges, Kallas acknowledged frustration over lack of EU unity on Gaza, but defended Brussels' humanitarian record and economic clout. On Europe's role in a multipolar world, she insisted,
"We are the credible and reliable partner for most of the countries. We might be boring, we might be, it takes time when we take decisions, but when we take those decisions, we are not running European Union by executive orders, which means that those decisions stay in place, and we are a reliable partner.